Hey everyone, it's Jolt here. If you look here on the left, this is a problem that many of you struggle with. The problem that you need to notice here is I have these mix of Excalidraw files and exported PNGs in the same folder. It's the same file twice. These are the books for my book. So here I have the cover as an Excalidraw file, and then here I have the cover as an automatically exported PNG file, and the same goes on. So here I have, for example, this illustration and then the PNG of the same illustration. Currently, Excalidraw does not allow you to save the PNG or SVG that's automatically exported to a different folder. This is something that many of you have asked for the past 3 years. This has come up at least once a month from someone, and finally I think I have a solution for you. The solution is more complicated than probably some of you may have liked. On the other hand, it will give you lots of flexibility as well. Let me show you. But before we go there, let me just show you some of the features that already exist in Obsidian Excalidraw. So you know that in plugin settings, under embedding Excalidraw into your nodes and exporting, you can come down to export settings, and here you have auto export settings. This part allows you to set up automatic export of all your drawings to SVG and or PNG. I don't do this because this would be 4,000 unnecessary files in my vault. So this to me is overkill. But if you're concerned about the longevity of Excalidraw files, then for sure PNGs and SVGs are going to be supported. I'm 100% sure in 15-20 years without any doubt. So then you can do the automatic export. And of course, there can be other use cases as well. Instead of this setup, I like to control export at a file level, and I configure that in my templates. Because, for example, for my book, I needed the automatic exported files, or for Excalidraw Obsidian.online, I need the SVGs auto exported, but for other files, I don't need that. So how do you do that? If I flip this over to Markdown view mode, so this is now the same file in Markdown view mode, I can add Excalidraw auto export PNG or SVG here as a Frontmatter property. By the way, this is also here, so if you look at the document properties, it appears here as well. I just like this old-fashioned source view mode of the file. To me, this gives more control, but the same works with the document properties. If now I add something to this drawing and save it, then you can see that automatically an SVG file was created, and that was placed right next to the Excalidraw file. This is great, but this is where the problem comes in. So what if I wanted to save this to the assets folder instead? Well, with 2.13, you can use I created some additional Excalidraw hooks or triggers that you can use for this. Namely, I created two, so let me just quickly bring up the project here. So this is Visual Studio Code, the source code. I created the onImageExportPath hook, and I created another one is onTriggerAutoExport hook. We're going to look at how to set these up for yourself. So that's what we're going to be talking about next. To get started, you need to click here on Settings, and in Excalidraw Settings, you need to scroll down to Excalidraw Automate. And here you can click this button to create a startup script. When you do this, then you get this file in your vault. You can see it's right here under the Excalidraw folder. You can of course set up a different folder if you want to. And this file comes with lots of comments, so I tried to make this as readable as possible with examples. Also in mind that you can copy this and drop it to ChatGPT or Sonnet or some other AI tool. And this is going to give the AI a great start in being able to create the script for you. So this should actually help not only you, but the AI tool as well. But here you need to scroll down to this function right here. So this is the onImageExportPath hook. And as a starting point, we can just remove the comment from here and the comment end of the comment from here. So what you see here, I already have a skeleton example implementation that comes with Excalidraw. You can of course modify this. We're going to look at how, but this should give you some ideas on how this works. Now this function receives an object called data, and that data includes these 5 fields that you can see here. So it gets the export file path. So this is the file path of the, for example, SVG image that would be created. Then it receives the Excalidraw file. So this is the source file that was exported. Then you get the export extension. I provide the extension because there are some tricky file names as well. There's a feature to automatically export both the dark and the light mode version of the file. You may do this because you have a website and you want to control if the user changes from light mode to dark mode, then the images follow that. Then you also have the old Excalidraw path property here. This only has value if the action is move, which means the file is being renamed or moved. And finally, you have the action here that the file is being exported from Excalidraw. The file is being renamed, so the Excalidraw file is being renamed, or the Excalidraw file is being deleted. This is important to understand the delete part because there are certain features that do not work during delete, because by the time this script runs, by the time Obsidian notifies the plugin that something was deleted, it is deleted. It's no longer there. So some of the features that you can use when it's being moved or exported don't work when it's being deleted. In particular, during delete, the Frontmatter of the Excalidraw file is no longer there. So if you have logic that builds on the Frontmatter, that's not going to work. But overall, if you uncomment this, then out of the box, this is already going to give you some features. Let's run this. Now, this is a startup script, which means you need to restart Excalidraw, or the easiest is to restart Obsidian for this script to take effect. So I'm just going to use command palette, reload app without saving. And now this code was executed. And so this is now running. And let's take a look. I'm going to delete this SVG from here. And let's make another modification here. Maybe I'm going to add this here like this, and press Ctrl S to force save. And you can notice here that instead of under demo, the SVG was created here in this folder, which is great. This is what we wanted, or of course, we'll look at how you can customize this, but this is definitely part of what we wanted. Now, if I would rename this file, so this is sample for video, like this, then this file is renamed as well. And indeed, if this is deleted, I'm going to delete that, then the sample for video was deleted as well. So this connection is still there. This actually works pretty well. Let's again create a new drawing here. Now, I want to show you how you could use the Frontmatter in doing this. So for example, So here at the beginning of this script, you can see this line. This is how I get the Frontmatter, the document properties for this particular Excalidraw file from the Obsidian metadata cache. So this function is here for your convenience. And later on here, I have this part commented. So if I remove the comments, I can add this criteria here that if there's Frontmatter and the Frontmatter has the isAsset property, and here you can add whatever. So here you can really create your own logic, create your own properties. IsAsset is just something I made up. You can create your own properties. Then move the file, otherwise don't move the file to assets. So here you go. Let's just show you how this works. So I'm going to come here, Excalidraw auto export, let it be now a PNG. Now, if I now press Ctrl S, this doesn't have the isAsset document property. So let's just see. You see, this doesn't have the isAsset document property. So when I add something here and press Ctrl S, then why? Oh, the reason it was created here, so let's delete this file, is because every time you modify Excalidraw Startup, you need to reload it. So reload app without saving. So I need to reboot Obsidian for the startup script to take effect. And now if I modify this and save it, then you can see that the PNG was created in the same folder because our criteria here includes that the isAsset Frontmatter property needs to be set to true. So if I come here and add isAsset true, so you can see it appear there. If I add isAsset true and switch over to Excalidraw mode, I'm going to delete the PNG. And now I save this, Ctrl S. Then, because this file has the isAsset true Frontmatter property, the script recognizes that this file needs to come here. Of course, this means that you can have Frontmatter properties that, I don't know, for website or for work or whatever else, and you can organize your files based on that using this logic, using Frontmatter tags. But the bit I want to highlight is the following. So now still the rename is going to work. So this is sample for video. This one works. But look what happens when I delete the Excalidraw file. Unfortunately, the sample video remains here. You remember, or you might roll back the video and look back earlier. This didn't, the other file was deleted as well. The reason is that when the file, the action is delete, the original Excalidraw file is no longer available. That means the Frontmatter is no longer available. Therefore, this logic that works based on the Frontmatter is going to cause you problems if you want to harmonize the deletion of files. Renaming and moving works, but deletion is not going to work, and that can lead to clutter. But if you take care of it in some other way, then I guess this can also be a very compelling approach, and you might have some other housekeeping or cleanup approaches. But for this reason, I have a different logic, and my logic is not to use the Frontmatter. So I'm again going to comment this out, but you can use the file name. So you can see here that I have this logic set up that if my file starts with the word icon dash, this is my naming convention that icons, stick figures, and logos start like this. I can use, this is a regular expression. Again, you can have different ways to code it here, and I'm sure that ChatGPT is going to do a good job at creating the code for you. But if you add this logic, then based on the type of file, you can automatically export to the relevant location, and that is going to be automatically deleted. So you can see here, these are my logos, my stick figures, and my icons here. So these are all automatically exported to these folders. So let's use the stick figure as an example, and let's just see what happens. So now I'm going to create a new drawing. I'm going to use my base template here. I'm going to add here the Excalidraw auto export PNG, for example, and I'm going to rename this file stick figure test like this, and we can actually remove the rest. If now I switch over to, okay, the reason it didn't switch over is because I was in the file name. If I open this in Excalidraw mode and I add something here and now press Ctrl S, then you can see that stick figure test was created. And the good news is that if I come here and execute delete, then test is deleted as well, because while the Frontmatter is not going to be available during delete, of course the old file name is going to still be available, and you can drive the logic of your application based on that. So that, I think, is a helpful feature here. And then the last bit I wanted to share with you today is the following, that, you know, there were two ways to automatically export files. Of course, one was in plugin settings. There you can just simply use the export settings here and set up auto export. So this is one mode. The other mode is, of course, the Excalidraw auto export like this, and you can set this up to be PNG, SVG, whatever. With 2.13, there's a new approach that you can use, which is available in the startup script, and which I decided to use. In the next video, you will see why this was important to me, but I think this is super useful. The basic, so the function is this: on trigger auto export hook. I'm going to remove the comment from here. This function is called every time before Excalidraw actually does the auto export. So Excalidraw will use the plugin settings and will use the Frontmatter in the document to decide which files to automatically export. But before the actual export happens, this hook is going to be called. It's going to receive data. The data is going to be the data for the hook is going to include the auto export configuration. So this is auto export config, and it's going to include the Excalidraw file. So you can see here these two values in data, and the auto export configuration is defined here. So you can set, is it a PNG, an SVG, an Excalidraw, so this is the legacy or the web-based Excalidraw file format, and you can set if the theme should be light, dark, or both. And what I have here is, in case I'm saving an Excalidraw file that's called, and that starts with the word icon, stick figure, logo, and then follows my naming convention that has a space dash space. If this is the file, then regardless of what's in the plugin settings, regardless if the file has a Frontmatter tag or not to automatically export the version. This is going to make sure that in a light theme, the SVG is going to be exported, the PNG and the Excalidraw is not going to be exported. So I modify the configuration, whatever Excalidraw comes up with, this is what should happen. And so let's just see how this works. I'm going to reload the app because we modified the startup script. I'm going to come here to my Excalidraw drawing, and you can see here if I draw something, of course, it's saved, but nothing happens because I don't have auto export configured, and I don't have auto export configured here either. But in this case, I can rename the file. I'm going to rename this right here. I'm going to call this stick figure dash test, like that. And now if I make a modification here, something like this, and press Ctrl S, then you can see here that stick figure test was created, even though the other criteria didn't work. And of course, you can configure this to work based on a folder. So if you're working in your blog folder, then automatically the files are going to be exported to, and you can define whatever location. So you understand how this can become a fully automated workflow where, based on the file naming convention, based on Frontmatter tags, based on all sorts of criteria, you can either decide whether to automatically do an auto export or not, and then to decide where to place that file. And all of this is done in a relatively intelligent way. So if I delete this, then of course the copy of that file is deleted. In addition, so that's just a final nice to have that I'm going to show you here, but this is actually not so nice to have. It's a very practical use case. So I'm going to now again create my stick figure here. So let's just rename this stick figure test. And I'm going to just add this here, and you can see the stick figure test was created. And now I'm going to create a markdown note here, and I'm adding the stick figure SVG here. This is, for example, my blog post. And the blog post only has the SVG file, and it doesn't have the Excalidraw file, of course. But there is a function in Excalidraw. This is open drawing, open Excalidraw drawing. If the SVG has a corresponding Excalidraw file, then it's going to open that Excalidraw file. So if I click this, then you can see here that the Excalidraw file was opened that corresponds to this SVG, even though they are in different folders. So the plugin now has this additional logic as well. Of course, this is not going to work if you have files that are named the same, and so you need to have a good naming convention for all of this to work properly. But essentially the features, I think, are now there to give you, after a bit of configuration, give you immense flexibility in how you set up where files are going and how they work. So apologies for this slightly longer video. I just wanted to cover this. Originally, I actually wanted to cover a different topic as well, but frankly, that would have been too much. So I'm just going to show you as a teaser. This is what's going to be the next video, how you can use Obsidian bases to create your icon library. There's a bit of tricks behind this, so I'm going to create a separate video. Originally, I thought this video would fit with the other, and we would have these two topics covered in one. I realized that that's mission impossible. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Play with the new feature. If you have questions, of course, please ask. I'm happy to help. I did quite some testing, but of course, there are always use cases that I didn't think of. And please make sure that you do proper amount of testing, because with every automation, there comes the risk that there are going to be effects that you don't know. For example, if you automatically export files, SVG files to a folder, if you have a naming conflict, then you have an issue. That's why essentially my basic script doesn't export to a flat folder, but it extends the path with the asset. So let me just show you this last small bit of feature here. So here, if I create a folder, so I'm going to create an untitled folder, and in the untitled folder, I'm going to create an ABC folder. And here in the ABC, I'm going to create a new drawing. And this new drawing, I'm going to set to Excalidraw auto export SVG, for example. And now if I automatically export this, so I press Ctrl S to force a save operation, then you can see that this file was created under assets demo untitled ABC, and this is the folder. So this is the way I configured the function right now, that it mirrors the folder structure under assets. Of course, you might want to do it differently. So for example, you might actually, if you wanted, you can change this very easily here, where you can see this in the script. Instead of the file path, you could use the file name and then work based on that. That would be an option, and then everything is in a flat assets file, or you can shorten the folder names. You can do lots of other things. This is really now down to your JavaScript skills and your AI prompting skills to make this work. But I just wanted to show you that you need testing, because otherwise you might end up with conflicting file names and overwriting SVGs that you didn't want to override, and then you just don't even notice it. So I think it is better to think and test, and hopefully I've given you enough food for thought in writing here in this file as well through this video that you can make this happen. So again, hopefully you enjoyed this. Sorry for the longer video, and hope you see you in the next one, where we'll talk about the image library using Obsidian bases. Thank you.